For centuries, human colonies had existed on the fringes of the galaxy, quiet, industrious, and mostly ignored. They mined asteroids, hollowed moons, and dredged barren planets for ores and energy sources, providing rare materials not only for themselves, but also for interstellar trade networks dominated by alien powers. Human settlements were efficient, disciplined, and, in appearance, innocuous. Orbital factories spun silently in the vacuum, mining stations glittered under distant suns, and ships moved in regular patterns, delivering resources across sectors. To the galaxy's powers, they were a minor footnote, a species that could be exploited, bullied, or ignored without consequence. And for a long time, that had been true. Alien fleets swept through human-controlled sectors with casual arrogance, claiming resources with minimal resistance. The Zorvian corporations deployed armed convoys to strip asteroid belts. Solari fleets imposed taxes on mining yields and sabotaged orbital depots, and Drexari forces conducted what they called surgical raids, leaving destruction in their wake. Human complaints were largely ignored. The galaxy had long assumed humanity's scattered colonies lacked the coordination, technology, and manpower to retaliate. They had assumed that absence of resistance meant weakness, and that their occasional defensive measures were merely symbolic gestures. But humans were not as they seemed. The attacks on their colonies were not met with immediate annihilation or chaos. Instead, they became lessons, data points, and catalysts for evolution. The survivors of each assault carried knowledge, skills, and technology that would inform the next generation. Every destroyed mining station, every burned orbital facility, every sabotage operation was recorded meticulously by humans in both data archives and neural AI networks. Engineers, tacticians, and commanders reviewed each incident with painstaking attention, analyzing enemy strategy, tactics, and error patterns. The galaxy's arrogance had overlooked a crucial truth. Humans could learn faster than most species could imagine, adapt quicker than most could predict, and prepare more thoroughly than most could plan. In secret, humans began transforming their colonies into dual-purpose hubs, civilian stations that could shift to military operations in an instant. Mining outposts concealed launch bays, hangars, and weapons arrays beneath surface-level operations. Orbital refineries contained emergency generators for combat drones. Asteroid belts harbored hidden caches of nanomaterials, gravimetric torpedoes, and autonomous ships designed to respond within moments. Each colony became both a fortress and a factory, each settlement a node in a growing, interconnected network of readiness that the galaxy had never imagined. Children in these colonies were trained not just in mining, engineering, or navigation, but in strategy, combat simulation, and adaptive problem-solving. Entire generations were taught to think in 3 dimensions at once: the immediate task of survival, the medium-term task of defense, and the long-term objective of preparation. They learned mathematics, physics, tactics, and psychology simultaneously, using every incident of alien aggression as a lesson. Where an alien fleet had underestimated them, they recorded the tactics and built countermeasures. Where a patrol had been overconfident, they designed simulations to exploit that hubris. Human society had transformed, imperceptibly but inexorably, into a species capable of responding not just to threats, but to the anticipation of threats centuries in advance. For decades, their preparation remained invisible. While fleets attacked, while colonies were plundered, humanity's hidden networks grew. Orbital stations extended arrays of cloaking devices, integrated nanometal hulls, and AI-linked weapons systems. Mining drones were adapted into small war machines capable of harassing enemy craft, infiltrating ships, and disabling command systems. Even the modest freighters that carried ore across sectors were equipped to act as scouts, carriers of adaptive weapons, and communication relays capable of linking with the hidden fleet across hundreds of light-years. By the time the galaxy struck its most recent series of assaults on human mining colonies, the species had evolved far beyond the attackers' expectations. What the galaxy perceived as isolated, weak colonies were, in reality, nodes in a highly sophisticated military-industrial network. Entire sectors had been fortified under the guise of mundane construction projects. Asteroids mined for ore also served as concealed shipyards. Orbital factories were capable of producing vessels at a speed and scale that the galaxy had never witnessed. Humans had taken centuries of neglect, oppression, and aggression and turned them into a weapon more powerful than any fleet the alien powers had assembled. The spark of aggression, the attacks on their minds, was about to ignite a force that no one in the galaxy could have anticipated. Where the aliens had seen weakness, humanity had quietly built strength. Where the galaxy assumed chaos and panic, humanity had cultivated strategy and patience. Every colony, every vessel, every facility had been prepared, every tactical response rehearsed, and every possible contingency considered. The attacks that were meant to subjugate humans had, in fact, been the final rehearsal for a retaliation that would echo across the stars for generations. And when humanity finally struck, it would not be with scattered attacks, desperate measures, or reckless fury. It would be precise, overwhelming, and inevitable. The galaxy had assumed that they could attack, pillage, and leave without consequence. They had assumed that humans were weak. They were wrong. Every destroyed mining station, every plundered colony, every burned facility had been another step toward the creation of a fleet capable of responding not only to individual threats, but to entire systems and alliances at once. Centuries of observation, simulation, and silent preparation had culminated in a singular, unstoppable truth. The humans were ready, and the galaxy would learn, in the coming days, that attacking humanity's minds was the gravest mistake any civilization could make. For what had been assumed to be victims, weak and scattered, were now a species transformed patient, precise, and utterly unyielding. Humanity had endured. Humanity had prepared, and the moment of reckoning had arrived. While the galaxy slept, confident in its assumption that humans were weak, scattered, and irrelevant, the human colonies quietly transformed their quiet corners of space into the foundation of an unstoppable force. Every asteroid belt, every hidden moon, every seemingly innocuous planet became more than what it appeared. The mines themselves were repurposed, retrofitted, and redesigned not just for extraction, but for survival and war. Industrial cranes were modified to double as assembly arms for drones and small warships. Refineries were secretly adapted into energy distribution hubs capable of powering massive shield arrays or gravimetric weapons. Even the transportation networks of mundane freighters were configured to act as command relays, decoys, or rapid deployment vessels in case of conflict. The galaxy saw only miners and cargo vessels, but humanity had turned their colonies into a living, breathing network of hidden arsenals. The human fleet itself was a marvel of meticulous engineering, a network of interconnected systems built to operate as one entity. The flagship, indomitable, was both a bastion of firepower and a neural hub for coordination across light years. Its hull was sheathed in adaptive nanometals that could repair themselves in real time and adjust composition to counter incoming weaponry. Its shield systems were linked to advanced AI that recalibrated projections instantaneously, redirecting energy back toward attackers or dispersing it in ways no alien sensor array could anticipate. Propulsion systems allowed for sudden bursts of acceleration, maneuvering a vessel that massive with the agility of a smaller frigate. Around it swarmed support vessels, each outfitted with complementary technologies, drones, and micro-fighter squadrons, all integrated into the same quantum-linked neural network. Every craft, from the smallest scout to the largest warship, acted with the precision and coordination of a single mind. Humanity's approach to technology was unlike any species the galaxy had encountered. They had mastered the ability to adapt old systems for new purposes. Mining drones could be instantly repurposed as attack units, able to swarm enemy vessels, disable sensors, and breach hulls without human pilots. Cargo haulers could carry gravimetric torpedoes capable of rupturing armor across light years. Every component, every device, every tool developed in the colonies had a dual purpose, ensuring that humanity could strike with efficiency unmatched by any fleet assembled in the galaxy. Even their orbital stations were equipped with retractable weaponry and concealed armor plating that could withstand strikes from entire fleets before revealing their true strength. Intelligence gathering was equally formidable. For centuries, humans had recorded and analyzed the tactics, strategies, and behavioral patterns of every alien civilization that had ever engaged them. Zorvian arrogance, Solari rigidity, and Drexari hive predictability were all catalogued, simulated, and used to inform human strategies. Predictive AI calculated enemy maneuvers, identified weaknesses, and coordinated responses across entire star systems. Every historical attack, every failed raid against human colonies, every tactic employed by the galaxy's dominant powers had been studied, replicated, and turned into countermeasures. The humans did not fight blindly. They struck with foresight, precision, and adaptability, ensuring that nothing was left to chance. The scale of preparation was staggering. Hidden shipyards produced vessels continuously, their output coordinated across multiple systems to avoid detection. Entire fleets could be constructed, armed, and deployed in a fraction of the time any alien power could anticipate. Weapons development had progressed silently, yielding gravimetric torpedoes capable of collapsing ships from the inside, energy projectors that could cut through shields with adaptive calibration, and swarm drones that could infiltrate, sabotage, and neutralize entire fleets. Human ingenuity had turned what the galaxy assumed were simple colonies into nodes of technological supremacy, a lattice of preparation stretching across light years. Even human society itself had evolved to meet the demands of this hidden war machine. Every generation was trained for multiple disciplines: engineering, combat, strategy, and leadership. Civilians could transition seamlessly into operational roles during emergencies, while soldiers, engineers, and pilots were cross-trained to understand every aspect of fleet operation. Every individual, every colony, and every ship was a cog in a grand machine designed for one purpose: the defense and eventual retaliation against those who had dared to attack human settlements. The galaxy continued to underestimate them. Trade fleets passed near the hidden colonies, smugglers traversed the asteroid belts, and fleets moved as if nothing had changed. They saw no weapons, no fortifications, no threat, and continued their exploitation. But humans waited, silent and patient, knowing that the moment to strike would arrive with maximum effect. Every system under observation had been mapped, every fleet's protocols analyzed, every weakness calculated. When the time came, humanity would not only defend their colonies, they would demonstrate the consequences of underestimation in a manner that no civilization could ignore. And the moment of emergence would be overwhelming. The fleets hidden in asteroids, moons, and orbital shipyards were ready. The weapons, designed to exploit weaknesses of every known alien strategy, were prime. The human colonies, which the galaxy had once thought defenseless, now held the means to destroy fleets, disable stations, and neutralize planetary defenses with surgical precision. Every resource gathered, every innovation developed, every tactic studied for centuries would converge into a single, unstoppable force. In essence, the galaxy had been unaware of the storm quietly gathering at its edges. Humanity's hidden arsenals were not merely defensive, they were instruments of vengeance, strategy, and dominance. The minds that had been attacked were not vulnerabilities, they were triggers, the catalysts for a retaliatory network built over centuries of planning, observation, and adaptation. Every vessel, every drone, and every orbital station would soon act in perfect synchronization, turning what had once been peaceful colonies into the heart of an unstoppable military machine. The galaxy believed humans were weak. They were wrong. Humanity had endured, adapted, and prepared. The hidden arsenal was complete, the fleet ready, and the species poised to strike with a precision, scale, and intelligence that no civilization could have anticipated. And when the signal came, when humanity finally emerged from the shadows, the attackers would realize far too late that the century-long patience of a species underestimated was a weapon far deadlier than any fleet, bomb, or army the galaxy had ever known. The galaxy's arrogance was complete. Fleets of Zorvian, Solari, and Drexari warships swept through sectors where human colonies had once quietly toiled, expecting only minor resistance. They assumed their superior numbers, advanced weapons, and centuries of dominance would guarantee unchallenged raids, safe plundering, and minimal losses. They believed humanity to be scattered, uncoordinated, and too technologically backward to respond with real threat. They were wrong. Humanity was no longer the species they thought they knew. At first, nothing seemed different. Cargo freighters carried raw ore to trade hubs. Mining drones continued their programmed routines, swarming asteroids and collecting precious minerals. Orbital stations broadcast routine communications, and hidden shipyards appeared dormant. But the galaxy had long underestimated human patience, and patience, humanity had learned, was a weapon. The first sign of change was subtle. Freighters on routine routes began to vanish from sensors for seconds at a time, only to reappear with altered trajectories and velocity beyond any known propulsion systems. At first, alien fleets thought it a technical glitch, a minor anomaly in subspace communications. Then, a mining station under attack transmitted a signal so garbled and distorted that enemy commanders dismissed it as a software malfunction. By the time they realized it was a warning, the first human vessels were already in position. Emergence was not chaotic. It was a precise symphony of preparation. Hundreds of small human ships, previously invisible or hidden within asteroid fields, emerged simultaneously from cloaking fields, converging on enemy positions. These ships acted as scouts, strike teams, and interference nodes, deploying micro-drones into enemy control systems. Command centers of alien warships experienced cascading failures, navigation systems overloaded, weapons arrays shut down, and communications scrambled. The fleets were blind, deaf, and incapable of coordinated action. Then came the heavy hitters, dozens of human capital ships, their hulls gleaming with adaptive nanometals and shielded by quantum energy arrays, emerged from the shadows of hidden moons, asteroid belts, and orbital shipyards. The flagship Indomitable led the formation, a massive vessel capable of acting as both command hub and concentrated offensive weapon. It projected gravimetric fields that warped space near enemy vessels, tearing hulls apart from within, while energy projectors carved through shields with surgical precision. Supporting cruisers deployed drone swarms that infiltrated enemy ships, sabotaging engines and weapon systems before crews could comprehend what was happening. Entire fleets of the coalition, previously confident in their dominance, were obliterated within hours. The galaxy had never witnessed such coordination or efficiency. What had once been isolated colonies now operated as a single entity, a networked organism of ships, stations, and drones acting with unified intent. Enemy vessels that had prided themselves on advanced sensors and predictive AI were rendered obsolete. Humans had anticipated their every move, their every tactic, and their every weakness. The human fleet moved with the precision of a living organism. Attack patterns were synchronized across light years. Gravimetric torpedoes disrupted enemy formations before they could deploy countermeasures. Adaptive energy projectors neutralized incoming fire while simultaneously targeting structural weak points. Micro-drones entered airlocks, sabotaged command systems, and turned weapons against their owners. Enemy commanders, trained for decades in predictive tactics, were forced to witness a coordinated assault that had anticipated even the most unconventional moves. Civilian systems, trade hubs, and neutral colonies were untouched. Humanity's strike was deliberate, surgical, and focused solely on those who had attacked or exploited them. Each action served a dual purpose: destruction of aggressors and demonstration of overwhelming capability. Humanity's message was clear: attack our colonies, and you will face the full might of a species that has mastered preparation, strategy, and execution. The galaxy's assumption that absence equaled weakness was a fatal miscalculation. The psychological impact was immediate. Entire sectors went into panic. Commanders hesitated, fleets retreated, and trade networks collapsed. Alien civilizations that had once ignored or dismissed humanity now scrambled to understand how an ostensibly minor species could deploy such a precise, overwhelming force. Messages of surrender, pleas for negotiation, and frantic retreats flooded subspace channels. But the humans did not stop. They struck with relentless efficiency, dismantling fleets, neutralizing orbital stations, and disabling defensive arrays with surgical precision. As the first major battle concluded, the scale of humanity's preparation became undeniable. Hundreds of ships destroyed, entire mining sectors reclaimed, and the remnants of once dominant fleets scattered in disarray. Yet the humans did not celebrate. Their victory was not about glory or vengeance. It was about a lesson, a principle drilled into the galaxy over centuries of observation and preparation: underestimate humans at your peril. And the galaxy began to understand, with mounting dread, that this was only the beginning. One sector liberated, one fleet destroyed, and one orbital station reclaimed were mere preludes to the broader campaign that stretched across hundreds of systems. Every alien species that had ever attacked human colonies realized the same chilling truth. Humanity had been patient, silent, and unseen, waiting for the exact moment to reveal their true capability. The warships that emerged were not scattered or improvised. They were the culmination of centuries of planning, innovation, and adaptation. In a single, devastating operation, humanity transformed from the assumed victim to the unstoppable predator. Every vessel moved as part of a living network, every weapon precisely targeted, and every maneuver executed with flawless coordination. The galaxy had thought humans weak. They had thought humanity scattered. They had thought the species extinct. And the humans, at last, had emerged to prove them wrong, with overwhelming force, surgical precision, and a patience that had turned absence into advantage. By the end of the emergence, one message echoed across subspace. You attacked our minds. You chose poorly. The galaxy had been warned. Humanity was no longer to be underestimated. Humanity had returned, and the reckoning had begun. As the first wave of human retaliation swept through the sectors, the galaxy reeled. Fleets that had once commanded respect and instilled fear in countless civilizations were now in full retreat, scattered and broken. The scale of destruction was unlike anything the Council or the Empires had ever imagined. Systems that had once been considered impregnable fell with methodical precision, orbital fortresses shredded by gravimetric ruptures, and the remnants of alien warships drifting silently in the void as evidence of humanity's strategic genius. News of the emergence spread faster than subspace signals, moving through communications channels with the velocity of panic, leaving every corner of the galaxy scrambling to comprehend the scale of the threat. Civilizations that had once ignored or mocked humanity now faced an existential reality. The species they believed insignificant was not merely surviving, it was overwhelming entire fleets and neutralizing advanced orbital fortifications with ease. Zorvian, Drexari, and Solari leaders convened in emergency councils, but even their combined intellect could not reconcile the data streaming in from the front lines. Reports of human vessels appearing from nowhere, coordinated attacks executed with surgical precision, and fleets dismantled without apparent losses created a sense of disbelief that rippled across every sector. The galaxy's arrogance had been shattered, replaced by fear, and the fear was justified. Every human fleet movement was deliberate. Each strike was calculated to maximize psychological impact as much as physical destruction. The survivors of destroyed fleets carried reports of human technology that seemed almost preternatural. Adaptive shields that could anticipate weapon frequencies, micro-drone swarms capable of sabotaging entire ships within minutes, and gravimetric weapons that destabilized hull integrity without warning. The Indomitable, along with its support fleet, moved as the nerve center of a network that extended across systems, with each vessel functioning like a neuron in a single, immense brain. Human coordination exceeded anything the galaxy had ever conceived, and every alien strategist realized too late that their old assumptions had been catastrophically wrong. Trade routes that had once been arteries of interstellar commerce collapsed. Merchant fleets abandoned scheduled routes, leaving colonies without essential supplies. Strategic positions were evacuated preemptively, as local governors feared exposure to the sudden, precise devastation of human forces. Diplomacy faltered. Messages pleading for negotiations or ceasefires flooded the network, but humanity had made their position clear long before the first fleet was destroyed. Attacks on their colonies would be met with overwhelming coordinated retaliation. There would be no mercy for those who had chosen aggression. The psychological effect on alien commanders was compounded by human unpredictability. Every species had been studied in painstaking detail. Zorvian reliance on brute force, Solari rigidity and formation tactics, Drexari hive predictability, all exploited. Where a fleet expected resistance, it found coordination that had anticipated its exact formation and firing sequences. Where alien tactics relied on intimidation or overwhelming numbers, humans responded with swarming microdrones, adaptive shields, and gravimetric displacements that rendered those tactics obsolete. The galaxy realized that no species, no matter how advanced or experienced, could contend with the combination of patience, preparation, and intelligence that humanity had cultivated over centuries. The Council, which had long dismissed human colonies as peripheral concerns, convened with unprecedented urgency. Delegates argued, threatened, and attempted to formulate strategies to counter the unstoppable tide, but their deliberations were paralyzed by a simple truth. Humanity had not just returned, they had evolved into a force that could strike with speed, precision, and coordination that no empire could match. Past assumptions about galactic power structures were obsolete. All the simulations, all the war games, and all the contingency plans failed against a species that had taken centuries to perfect its own system of war, strategy, and technological innovation. Civilian populations across multiple sectors experienced their own wave of fear. Propaganda broadcasts that had long depicted humans as weak, primitive, and compliant now seemed absurd. News feeds and intelligence reports showed fleets vanishing into explosions, orbital fortresses shredded in moments, and stations previously considered impregnable being neutralized without warning. Merchants abandoned trade routes, refugees fled colonies, and planets once thought safe now braced for the inevitable approach of a human fleet. Humanity's return had turned the galaxy into a landscape of chaos, not through reckless conquest, but through a demonstration of absolute capability. The humans themselves, however, did not celebrate. Each victory was catalogued, analyzed, and used to refine subsequent actions. Every destroyed enemy fleet provided data for the next wave. Every tactical engagement, no matter how small, became part of a living archive of knowledge, further enhancing humanity's operational superiority. The galaxy, in contrast, was floundering, trying desperately to adapt to a species that had been underestimated for centuries, and had used that underestimation to engineer a precision strike force beyond imagination. By the end of this initial campaign, the warning was unmistakable. Humanity was not merely defending itself, they were asserting their dominion over the consequences of aggression. Any system, any fleet, any empire that had dared to exploit human colonies was now faced with a species that had mastered patience, preparation, and execution at a scale no other civilization could match. The message spread faster than subspace communications could carry it. Attack humans again, and the consequences will be absolute. Every sector, every fleet, and every leadership council understood the same truth. The galaxy had assumed humanity weak, passive, and inconsequential. They were wrong. Humanity had returned as a force not only capable of defense, but of decisive, strategic, and overwhelming retribution. And the warning had already spread. Those who had ignored the quiet patience of human colonies now understood, with fear and trembling, that the cost of underestimation was total annihilation. Humanity had emerged from silence, and their shadows stretched across the stars like a storm the galaxy could neither escape nor resist. The galaxy had never faced anything like this. Fleets, that once dominated sectors with impunity now drifted in ruin, shattered by tactics, technology, and patience they had never anticipated. Commanders who had prided themselves on experience, strategy, and brute force were now reduced to panic and confusion, watching as their most meticulously coordinated plans collapsed before unseen hands. The humans had not merely returned, they had arrived as a force of inevitability, precise, disciplined, and merciless in execution. Every system they touched, every fleet they engaged, became a demonstration of centuries of preparation, adaptation, and relentless intelligence. The flagship, indomitable, glowing with adaptive nanometals, led the charge like a spear through the heart of the galaxy's arrogance. Supporting vessels moved in perfect synchronization, forming an ever-shifting formation that could attack, defend, and manipulate gravitational vectors simultaneously. Gravimetric torpedoes tore through hulls from within. Energy projectors cut shields like they were paper, and drone swarms infiltrated command centers to turn enemy weaponry against themselves. Entire fleets that had once been feared for their technological superiority and numbers disintegrated under this orchestrated precision. The humans had mastered the art of war, not as a reaction, but as an inevitability, an unstoppable force of nature honed over centuries of study, innovation, and discipline. The first major coalition fleet, numbering over 10,000 warships, attempted to regroup and counterattack. But the humans anticipated their every move. Fleets were lured into traps across multiple sectors, each strike synchronized with others hundreds of light-years away. Enemy cruisers found themselves flanked by vessels that had appeared without warning, micro-drones disabling engines, shields, and communications. Gravimetric anomalies tore ships apart before their crews could even register the attack. In mere hours, what had been the strongest offensive in decades became a derelict armada, drifting silently through space as evidence of human superiority. Planetary defenses that had once seemed invulnerable were neutralized with similar efficiency. Orbital cannons, shield grids, and planetary interceptors were systematically dismantled. Human drone swarms infiltrated surface command centers, taking control of automated defense arrays and turning them on their former masters. Alien commanders who had relied on centuries of tradition, technology, and hierarchy now realized that every advantage they had counted on was anticipated and neutralized. In the vacuum of space, their pride became a liability, and humanity's patience and foresight became the weapon that could not be countered. And still, the humans did not rush recklessly. Each strike, each engagement was deliberate. Entire empires were not annihilated without purpose. Rather, the humans targeted those who had attacked, exploited, or underestimated them. Systems that had remained neutral were left untouched, witnesses to the precision and discipline of human warfare. The message was unmistakable. Retaliation was not chaotic. It was a measured, intelligent, and unstoppable demonstration of consequence. Humanity had turned centuries of survival and preparation into a force that was more than military. Might it was a principle, a lesson, a warning etched in fire across the stars. The psychological impact of humanity's return was as devastating as the physical destruction. News of fleets vanishing, entire stations neutralized, and orbital fortresses shattered spread across the galaxy faster than subspace relays could transmit. Civilizations that had long ignored human colonies now trembled, unable to comprehend how a species that had once been considered weak could wield such overwhelming and coordinated force. Diplomats, governors, and commanders scrambled, sending pleas for parley, offers of surrender, and desperate negotiations. But the humans had learned long ago that mercy without understanding was futile. The galaxy had underestimated them, and the cost of that misjudgment was now absolute. Entire sectors, once bustling with commerce and industry, were paralyzed. Trade networks collapsed, alliances fractured, and militaries retreated in fear. Even the most technologically advanced species could not counter the combination of adaptive technology, tactical genius, and relentless coordination humanity displayed. The Indomitable and its fleet moved not as individual ships, but as a single organism capable of executing strategies that defied conventional understanding. Every move was calculated, every attack precise, every engagement reinforcing the unassailable truth. The humans were the masters of their destiny, and the galaxy was paying for every slight, every misjudgment, and every assault on their people. By the end of the campaign, the galaxy had been transformed. Fleets were shattered, colonies reclaimed, and empires humbled. Every species that had attacked human settlements now understood, with a clarity born of devastation, that humanity's patience had been a weapon, their preparation a force of nature, and their vengeance inevitable. The message was simple, but it resonated across subspace. Attack humanity again, and the consequences will be absolute. Humanity had returned, not merely to defend, but to assert that absence does not mean weakness, that patience is a weapon, and that survival is only the beginning. The galaxy's arrogance, its dismissiveness, and its assumption that humans were weak had been replaced with a new reality. Humans were a species of inevitability, intelligence, and unyielding resolve. Fleets that had once feared nothing now fled at the sight of a single human flagship. Civilizations that had once dismissed humanity now understood the true cost of miscalculation. And in the silent vacuum of space, among the ruins of shattered fleets and neutralized fortresses, humanity's presence was undeniable. They had endured centuries of exploitation and attacks, learned, adapted, and prepared, and finally returned as the ultimate reckoning. The galaxy would never again underestimate them. Every attack, every insult, every assumption of weakness had been catalogued, analyzed, and transformed into power. Humans had struck back, and the universe would remember that strike for generations. The reckoning was complete. The galaxy had assumed humans weak, passive, and inconsequential. They were wrong. Humanity had endured, prepared, and returned as a storm of precision, strategy, and unstoppable force. The message was clear across every sector, every fleet, and every planet. The era of underestimating humanity was over. The humans had returned, and nothing would ever be the same.